excellent source year-round. And for biology students, our idyllic location feeds much of the research taking place in our state-of-the-art labs. We've got top-notch facilities for the humanities and the arts as well. Students can count on the strong academic, financial, and personal support from offices like Student Development and Services, Student Financial Services, Aboriginal Initiatives, and Academic Advising. We have many scholarships, bursaries, and awards to help out with the financial side of your education too. More than half of our first-year students receive an entrance scholarship, and many of our students find jobs right on campus throughout the year. Our award-winning Harris Learning Library features many large and open spaces flooded with natural light. It's centrally located on campus and offers a comfy place to do research, study on your own, or meet up with friends. You'll learn as much outside of the classroom as inside. By taking part in Winter Carnival, acting in a Students on Stage play, or joining the Geography Club, you'll meet new friends, expand your mind, and make your campus experience so much more fulfilling. Our newly expanded Student Athletics Center can help you achieve balance in your busy life. Enjoy a workout or fitness class and don't worry about the membership. It's included in your student fees. If you love the outdoors, go for a hike on our 20 kilometers of trails that are right on campus. Or lace up your skates on the rink located steps outside of residence. If you're a sports fan, cheer on your varsity Laker teams and make some noise at a home game. Check out our 2 cafeterias that serve up all your faves. Don't forget that our residences feature a full kitchen, but you can also opt into a meal plan that operates like a gift card, allowing you to put on as much or as little money as you like. So why choose Nipissing University? Because we focus on your success. You'll immediately feel part of our community. You'll study with first-rate professors in small interactive classes where you'll have a name and a voice. You'll live in some of the best residences in Canada and make lifelong friendships. You'll find your place, explore your future, and know you're right where you belong.
So that gives you a little bit of a glimpse of Nipissing University, some of the spaces that we have, and tells you a little bit about our university and how we approach post-secondary education. I'm going to share my screen again now and share a PowerPoint presentation where we'll go through some of the information about the institution, the programs that we offer, financial aid, and all of those pieces. Okay. Hopefully everyone can see this okay. I want to thank you again for joining us today. We're really proud at Nipissing to be working with our partners in India and wonderful agents like all of you that are doing a lot of hard work to help provide information about institutions like ours to your students. So Nipissing University is located in North Bay, Ontario in Canada. North Bay is about 3.5 hours north of Toronto, which tends to be the larger city that most folks who are not from Canada know. It's a short drive away. We do have an airport in North Bay as well, so if students are flying in, they can arrive directly into the city. They'll usually transit through Toronto, so they'll stop there first and get a flight up to North Bay from there, but that is an option for them too. North Bay is a really beautiful city. Oftentimes when describing it, especially to students who might be coming from outside of Canada, I'll describe it as being what you might picture when you think of typical Canadian imagery. Lots of lakes and water, beautiful forests. You can see in some of the pictures here at the bottom right of this image, we do have Lake Nipissing is what's pictured here, but we have multiple lakes in North Bay. So this is only one of a few. You can imagine that they're quite beautiful. And you can see some of the forest as well. That same picture is actually showing the campus there in the midsection, and at the very end is the forest. We back on to about 20 kilometers of hiking trails and quite a few acres of Canadian shield forest. So there's a lot of that natural beauty that I think people think of when they're thinking about Canada and either visiting or studying. But in addition to having a lot of those really beautiful outdoor type areas here in North Bay, we are a city as well. So there's lots of things for students to do here, whether they like doing things outdoors, they like things to do with music or the art scene. There's lots of lovely galleries and things to do there. We have restaurants, malls, movie theaters, all that kind of stuff. And we do have a public transit system buses that run through the city that students can use. It's included in their student fees if they're studying full-time on campus. The buses are very clean, reliable, they run regularly, so students get access to campus. They can go into town to do their groceries or to go visit people, go run errands, make appointments, anything like that. So it does make it really convenient for our students to get around. And North Bay is a really community-based city. So we do find students that are coming here, it's easier to find your way around than some of the larger cities. And it's also easier to get to know people. People start to recognize you, and it can be quite friendly. In terms of the campus itself, Nipissing University is a self-contained campus. This means that we're not spread out throughout the city. We're all in one location. It makes it, again, quite easy for the students to get around, to find their way to classes, to labs, to activities that they might be doing on the campus. Our campus consists of residence buildings. There are 3 apartment-style residences, which are the ones that were shown in the video. We'll talk about residence a little bit later as well in terms of the setup of it. There's also a few what we call townhouse residences, which are generally for upper year students, and they're just set up a little bit differently than the apartments are. We have an athletic facility, which was featured in the video, and you can see a small picture of the lab there as well, and some of the gym facilities there that students can use. We have a library, beautiful, big, open, lots of resources, computers for students to use, books, help with any kind of writing, citation, things like that from the wonderful staff there. There's the monastery, which is used primarily for our fine arts students and for studio space. We have our education center, which is where the majority of the classroom space and lab spaces are. And then in the bottom right-hand corner of this page, you can see an architect's rendering of a new building that's under construction right now, and this is our student center. This is still predicted to be open coming sometime this fall. It was supposed to be the beginning of the fall, but with COVID, the construction was delayed a little bit. They are still anticipating that it will be open before the end of this first term and exams. But that's a space that's dedicated entirely to students. And so it was spearheaded largely by our student union. They'll have their offices in there, and I'll touch on them a little bit later as well. There's lots of open space for studying, for hanging out. There's going to be places to get food, a student socialization space. So it's really a building that's just for students. There aren't classrooms in there. Professors don't have offices in there. It's a space dedicated to them. An important part of studying at Nipissing, or as you may have got that you watched, an important part of Nipissing for us and our students is the student life, the community, and the involvement for them. And this echoes with our international students as well. When they come to Canada and they come to Nipissing, we want them to feel like a part of our community, to feel connected, and to feel supported while they're here. You can see a number of different images of things that students might get involved with as part of their student life at Nipissing. In the video, you saw a reference to getting involved with some of the things like the Frost Week or the Frost Week that happens. There's clubs, teams, athletics, whether people would like to play for fun in an intramural sport, or if they're competitive, if there's a student that would like to be considered for a varsity sport, that's possible as well. There's lots of different ways that students can make connections that really help them feel like they are a part of Nipissing's community, and it lends a lot to their education as well. A lot of our students get really strong academic education in the classroom and professional education, and getting involved outside of the classroom helps them to grow personally while they're here as well. Residences are one of our pride points. I would say we have some of the best residences in Canada. I did mention that we have 3 what are called apartment style buildings. I'm just going to see if I have the map here. So the apartment styles are 4 individual bedrooms with locking doors. So each student in our residences gets their own private bedroom. But those 4 bedrooms are attached to a common living room and kitchen space. So all of our students at Nipissing, anyone who lives in residence, we don't have any dorm style residences, those kind of traditional ones where it's just a bedroom and there's maybe 2 or 3 students that share the space. Every student has their own bedroom in all of our residences, and every student has access to a kitchen and a lounge space with those roommates. In the townhouse style, which I mentioned earlier, The difference really is that they're larger spaces, and instead of 4 students sharing, it's 6 students that are there, but the buildings themselves are a little bit bigger. They're set up as townhouses instead of apartment style. Most of our new students, if they are living in residence, live in the apartment style. The townhouse tends to be for upper year students. And our residence prices range from about $5,700 in the townhouse style to $6,500 for the apartment style. Residence is not guaranteed to students. The only students that are guaranteed are new students from Ontario high schools. So students that are coming from outside of Ontario or who are coming not directly from high school. They might have taken a few years off, maybe they've been working, or they did college or university already. They're not guaranteed, but often we do have some space. So students are still encouraged to apply to residence if that's something that they are interested in, is that living experience. Because then we'll allot space based on the applications that we get from students. The residences have dons as well as full-time staff. So dons are trained student staff that are accessible 24/7 to everyone in the residences for anything that they might need, whether they just need to talk to someone, if they need help with something, whatever it might be. And we do also have permanent full-time staff members like myself that work in residences, my counterparts and colleagues that are also there for students for anything that they might need, and to run some of the programming, because our students in residence also have programming that's geared towards helping them get to know people in the residence building, activities that they do for fun, as well as some educational ones if it's the first time that they've ever lived on their own. We have things like how to do laundry, how to cook meals, and how to use our grocery bus from residence to get groceries in town as well, that Nipissing supports that way. Other student supports on campus, these are just a few of the ones that we'll highlight. We do have an international initiatives office that our students coming from outside of Canada would use. That's both students that are degree seeking, like hopefully the students that you'll be speaking with, as well as any exchange students use the office as well. There's transition supports for when students first arrive. Employment supports, so when they first arrive, they'll be invited to attend some orientation sessions, and this year we're planning on having some virtual orientations to help them get set up with their social insurance number, which students require to work while they're here in Ontario. We also help them get set up with their health insurance, or UHIP, the University Health Insurance Program here in Ontario. And we do this on campus with them because it helps them navigate that. So when they first arrive in Canada, in Ontario, they don't need to worry about navigating those systems by themselves. At Nipissing, we help them with those two pieces, which can be quite significant. The International Initiative Office runs all kinds of other activities as well, helping international students connect on campus so that they can meet other people who are attending from outside of Canada, doing activities together and all kinds of different supports. So it's a really great office for any students that might be attending Nipissing University. Some of the resources that are available to all of our students, but that I think students from all walks should definitely take advantage of, are our academic services. So this includes things like student learning and transitions. If students need help in a particular course, perhaps they want a tutor, or they would like to go to a workshop on something like time management, stress management, or any of the others that are offered, that's where they would go. We have accessibility services. If a student experiences any long-term or short-term disability that might interfere with the quality of their education, this is the office that they can go to for accommodations. We have an Office of Indigenous Initiatives as well as multi-faith space, so some cultural supports. And there's personal services as well. We have an equity center on campus, which is peer-to-peer support. A health center, should anyone need to see a doctor or a nurse, they can certainly use our health center on campus. And our health center on campus also does the direct billing with that UHIP program that our international students are a part of. So they wouldn't need to pay any money upfront out of pocket to use that service. Whereas if they go to some other services outside of the few that do the direct billing, they may have to pay upfront and then get reimbursed. So it's a good knowledge for them to have as well. We have student counseling on campus and student intervention supports as well. For a smaller institution, Nipissing really prides itself on putting a lot of work, a lot of resources and finances into our student supports. And it's part of the reason that we're consistently ranked highest in the province and the country in our area for student satisfaction, student support services. Our students really recognize the work that we do to help make sure that while they're away at school, they're being supported. Finances can be a big part of the decision for students. The chart that you see on the screen right now describes automatic scholarships that are available to students who have graduated directly from high school and plan to attend the university immediately after graduation. So this would not apply to any students that have taken some time off if they've been working. And it does not apply to students that have already done some kind of post-secondary education, whether it be university or a diploma, anything like that. So this is only for students if they've just finished high school and they plan on entering Nipissing University the next September. This applies to them. These are automatic. The student doesn't need to do anything other than apply and get accepted to Nipissing and take that offer. So there's no additional application for them to get this money. If they've accepted their offer and they are going to attend Nipissing University and they have a overall final year high school average of 80 to 84, they will get $1,500 Canadian. If they have an 85 or above, they're going to get $2,500 Canadian. If the student has achieved a 90% average in that last year of their high school education, then they get the equivalent of free domestic tuition. So what that means is our domestic tuition tends to range from $6,000 to $8,000 around, depending on the courses that the student takes. If they get this scholarship and their tuition would have been $8,000 domestically, Nipissing will pay the $8,000 portion. The student would still be responsible for the international fee portion, which if that was an additional $9,000, $10,000, they still need to make that payment, but we'll cover the domestic portion. What you're seeing in the third column, the fall winter average year plus one, is what students need inside the university to maintain that scholarship. So that's the grade that they need to achieve to keep the money after that first year. There are other awards and bursaries. One of the scholarships that is applicable for international students is our Schulich scholarship. This scholarship does require an application. So if you have a student that applies to Nipissing University for an education program, be that the Bachelor of Concurrent Education, Bachelor of Consecutive Education, which we'll talk about in a moment the difference, or Bachelor of Physical and Health Education, they are eligible to apply for this scholarship, but it is an additional form that they need to fill out before May 1st to be considered. The value is $7,000 Canadian. There's around 100 of these scholarships available. So I highly, highly encourage students applying to those programs to do the application because it is a significant amount of money that can help them. They do have to have a minimum of an 80% average in their coursework that they've been doing. And I will also point out if a student applies for the Schulich scholarship and they're eligible for these entrance awards, in the first year, they can only hold one or the other, and we'd give them the higher value. So if a student is awarded free domestic tuition, but their tuition would come to say 6,000 Canadian dollars, but they also won the Schulich scholarship, which is valued at 7,000 Canadian dollars, they'll receive the 7,000 Canadian dollars for the Schulich award. And this is only 1 year. After that first year, they'll go back into this and they'll still receive their $3,000 each year after as if they had got that initial entrance award. Other funding options that are available for students. There's various opportunities to work both on and off campus. On campus is great because it's convenient, it's close to where their courses are, and folks on campus are really understanding around making sure students have time to study, book off time for their exams, anything that they might need in that sense. But there are wonderful opportunities off campus as well if students are looking for different types of work that maybe they're not finding on campus or for additional hours. We have in-course scholarships as well, which all of the international students are eligible for. This means that once they are actually studying at the university, so when they come, say, in September and they're a student enrolled in courses, they can do applications for in-course scholarships and they're eligible for those. It's based on performance at the university. And so there are a lot available to them there. And sometimes there are other external scholarships. So we always encourage students to look at other external scholarship sources outside of just the institution that they're applying to, because oftentimes there's lots of funding out there that is available to different types of students and not connected to any particular university. This gives a breakdown and a rough estimate of finances for an international student studying at Nipissing University. We do tend to have lower tuition than most other institutions in Ontario. You can see here on that first line, our estimated international student fees for tuition is around 19,000 Canadian dollars. That again includes both the domestic tuition and the international fee portion. All of the ancillary fees are things like that bus pass that we talked about earlier, access to the athletic center. If they choose to live in residence, as I said, it's around 5,700 to 6,500 Canadian dollars per academic year that they're in there. We estimate food for around 2,600. We do have meal plans available at Nipissing University, but they are not mandatory, which is different from most other institutions in Ontario, in our province. They are not mandatory at our institution because students have access to the kitchens in their residence buildings. All of our students live in apartments or houses that have kitchens, and we run a grocery bus a couple times a week to go into town to get groceries. If they choose to have a meal plan, it's $1,100 per term. It's a great option for convenience, but if the students prefer to cook, it's an expense that they don't have to have, then they can just spend their finances on their groceries, whatever that is, for themselves each week. Students will likely need textbooks and other supplies, so we budget that in there, and then some personal things as well, whatever they might be looking, if it's going out and having fun, if it's getting new materials, whatever they may need. So students should anticipate around $32,000, $33,000 a year to study at Nipissing University as an international student. These are our programs of study for undergraduate students looking at bachelor's levels degrees, whether that be students coming from high school or students who have some other education and are looking at a second degree. You can see that there's a wide variety of options available for students. We have lots of arts programs, science programs, and professional and education programs. Whether students are looking at studying things like history, English, geography, psychology, or fine arts. In the sciences, we have things like computer science, biology, there's math, and other options there as well. Psychology has a science degree. When it comes to professional studies, we have a Bachelor of Business Administration, as well as nursing is a popular program. Social work is another popular program. Nursing and social work both give students the education that they need and our education program to then apply to the professional governing bodies afterwards. So to be a social worker, to be a nurse, to be a teacher. There is one program that is not listed on here because it is brand new. We're only starting an intake this coming year, and that's our data science program. We're going to be doing a session in August, I believe, that will feature some of the professors from that program who will be able to give a lot more in-depth information about what that will look like, what students would be taking, how the program is structured, but it is going to be a brand new undergraduate program that may be of interest to some of our international students. The programs that you see on the screen right now are for students who already hold a university degree. The programs on the left-hand side are our post-baccalaureate programs. So these are business-focused programs. They're for students that already hold a university degree that is not in an area of business. So they should not have completed business administration, finance, marketing, anything like that. The students that this appeals to would be students who perhaps have an engineering degree, but are looking to now move into the business sector and apply their technical knowledge to start a business or to work in another business as a technical consultant or something. Those students would be eligible to take this program. It's a 2-year post-baccalaureate diploma, And you can see the fields here that we offer: administration, finance, human resources, management, international business, and marketing. It's built for students who don't have business knowledge. So some of those courses are starting from the basics, basically, which is why we don't accept the students with business backgrounds to that program. The students that you see on the right-hand side, the programs that you see on the right-hand side are our graduate programs. This would be for students who are studying in a similar field and wish to deepen their knowledge in that area. They could be looking for a master's of either arts or science in any of these areas you can see on the screen, or education. And we do have a doctorate program in education as well. The one at the very bottom, the Bachelor of Education that you see there, that is for students that have already another bachelor's degree. And I think, yes, here I have described. So in Ontario, there's two ways that a student can get their Bachelor of Education, which is the degree that allows them to apply to be a teacher in Ontario. If they do the concurrent education program, they'll be entering directly from high school, and they'll be doing 6 years of university at once. The first 4 years are basically working towards their honors degree, which would be one of these programs that's offered at the undergraduate level. And then they'll do another 2 years right after to do the education degree. For students who already hold a university degree, they can enter through the consecutive program. This means that they only do the 2 years required to get the Bachelor of Education. So that's why it is also listed under being graduate or postgraduate programs, because if they already have a university degree, they only need to do 2 years, not 6. I did mention when we were speaking about the Schulich scholarship, our school of education is called the Schulich School of Education. It's an endowed school of education, and we have been teaching teachers for over 100 years at Nipissing University and in North Bay. It's a very well-known program, very well respected. Our teachers are often hired right after they've been graduated because they have a lot of really good skills and practice for the classroom. In addition to the concurrent and the consecutive program, the Schulich School of Education does also host the Bachelor of Physical and Health Education, which is one of those undergraduate programs. And again, it was also eligible for the Schulich scholarship that we had spoken about earlier. In terms of admissions, we do all of our admissions through our India office. So hopefully you lovely folks will be able to get some students that you feel are a good fit for Nipissing University and encourage them to apply. We'll get the applications through our MSM office. We assess them and get them back. We have a goal turnaround time for undergraduate students of 15 days, basically business days. And then for graduate students, it does take longer. It can take several weeks because that application has to go through a committee for assessment as well. I hope that that's some good information about Nipissing and about some of the things you might have been curious for, things like finance, what the campus is like, the programs that we offer. If there are any questions, I am happy to address them now.
Thank you so much, Sarah. We already have a number of really interesting questions that we hope to get to touch on at least a little bit. So in order to start, people are really excited to know how is the Nipissing University combating the current COVID-19 situation? What are the university measures in order to help the current students and the current classes that are happening right on campus?
So Nipissing University, in line with the other Ontario universities, has moved to virtual only. It's how we finished our last term. From March until about the end of April is when students finished that last academic term. And we ran our summer, spring courses that way as well. So the term that runs from May until around now, June, July, were all done online. So the students were not on campus for classes. That is the plan for the fall term as well. From September until the end of December is the first term. Those courses will be online, so they'll be virtual. A lot of them are what we call asynchronous, which means that the professor will be posting the lectures and students can watch them at their convenience, basically. There will still be tests and assignments and all of that that will have due dates attached to them for most classes that students will need to stay on top of as they normally would. At this time, we haven't made any decisions around our winter term. That's the term that starts in January just yet. We're hoping that with guidelines and how things progress through the fall, that we'll be able to open in January, but we can't say for sure until we see what kind of guidelines the government is releasing closer to that date. But we're certainly making preparations so that if we can open in January and have our students back on campus studying in classrooms, that we can. We are right now waiting to hear what government guidelines are going to be for the fall, because we're preparing our residences to still be able to open and hopefully take students into residence, as long as it's safe to do so and as long as the government guidelines fit. We're in a good place because our residences are apartment style and students have their own bedroom in all the residences. Like I said, they're not those traditional dorm styles where students are 2 or 3 people to a room, which may be problematic, and I'm guessing the guidelines won't allow that. So we're hoping if the guidelines come out that students need their own room and all that, we'll be able to open the residence buildings for them. There are discussions right now around if students come internationally and there's still a quarantine that's needed of 2 weeks when they travel internationally. They're trying to see what might be able to be done to have quarantine done in our residences, if that's where the student's living, to make sure that that student can quarantine safely, that we can get them groceries, get them everything that they need. So those are discussions that are happening right now. Hopefully that answers the question.
I guess that would be quite helpful for everybody that has that particular question. Shira, on behalf of few people, I would really like you to stress upon that, how since the approval in principle for Canada is already in place for students who get the first stage clearance from on their visa and they start with the classes online, just in case they get a rejection on the later stage, or what does the procedure look like in terms of the refund for the tuition fee?
Mm-hmm. So right now we have a regular refund policy that is being followed. We're in discussions to see if we can come up with a specific kind of COVID specific refund policy for our international students, because generally when students have a period of time, they can drop out of courses anyway. So if a student starts in September and they're studying online, and then they find out in October that, or within that first month and a bit, that they're not able to continue studying, or they're not going to get their visa, so they don't want to finish the courses that they're in, they would still fall within our regular refund policy. And depending on how far into the term they've gone, depends on how much money they will get back. That refund policy tends to, I don't know the date off the top of my head, I think it's end of October, is when they can still drop the course without academic penalty, but they would no longer get monetary refund back after a certain point. What we're discussing right now is the possibility of, specifically for those students that have their stage 1 visa approval and find out later in the term, past the normal refund date, that they're rejected in their stage 2, the possibility of trying to make a different refund schedule that would give them a certain percentage of their money back. It hasn't been confirmed yet. As soon as we have final details, those will be communicated through Siobhan and the India team to anyone that might have students interested in applying. It is something we're working towards, but we just need to come up with how that would impact and some parameters as well, because if the student has finished half of the course by the time that they find out that their visa is rejected, they likely wouldn't get all of their money back, because the university would need to make sure that we offset the cost that we had for running that course for the student in it. But we are trying to work towards getting them something back, if it's whatever percentage of their money we're able to do. But we'll give updates as soon as we have some final criteria for that and what students would need to provide to be able to take advantage of that, how long it'll last, all of those.
Perfect. And if you can just press upon the eligibility requirements with the Duolingo score for students who want to go ahead with their Duolingo test for their language requirement, what can be the requirements for the same?
The undergraduate is 110 and the graduate is 115.
Okay. And if you can stress upon the requirements for PhD in education program at Nipissing.
Is it the concurrent education?
No, it's the doctorate in education.
Oh, the PhD.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah. So students have to already hold degrees. So they should have a bachelor's degree and a master's degree before they apply to a PhD. The field of study does not necessarily need to be education, but it does need to be related to education. So we do have some students who will do the PhD in education, but their master's degree was in social justice or something else, and they're looking at a research project that melds those two together. So it could be how accessibility in classrooms impacts students or something like that. So as long as the student has an idea of what they're looking to study and it's related to education and pedagogy of education, how education is accessible to people, they would be a good candidate for the PhD. They should look on our website, preferably, at what some of the professors in the education program are studying, because for the PhD, they should try to make sure that their research interests align with the research that's being done at Nipissing University, that there's someone in our faculty of education who would be a good fit to be supervising that work and has an understanding of the type of work that they're trying to do. We do have, as I mentioned, our education is a really strong program. We have a wide range of faculty with a lot of different research interests. So chances are there is someone there that shares that interest, but the student should look into it. They have to have performed well in their previous university education. So they should have, like a BA average in their bachelor's and master's studies. Ideally, they would have some kind of research component with their master's as well, since the PhD will heavily be done on research. And the PhD is possible to be done. They do have on-campus residencies that they need to come for the PhD, but they can also work away from campus too, if that suits them. So if they happen to be somewhere else in Canada at the time as well, they don't necessarily need to live in North Bay to do that program, but they do need to be here for a couple of months in the summers during the program.
Perfect. And Shreya, people would want to know that what kind of part-time job opportunities are available in North Bay, and what is the student life ideally feels like?
In terms of jobs, there's lots of different options. If the student is looking at working on campus, there's positions in the athletic center, in the library. There's positions with our team. We have student tour guides and students that work in our office to help us organize some of the events and activities that we run for future students. There's opportunities in the registrar's office advising, in international initiatives sometimes, in other areas as well. So whether the student is looking for experience in maybe the field of marketing, or if they want some administrative experience, there's different opportunities on campus for them there. Off campus and in North Bay, the city, there's also a wide range of opportunities. I know some students have found a lot of success getting employment at some of the bigger chains here, like Walmart does a lot of hiring for students, both our international students as well as our domestic students. There are lots of little kind of local stores as well that students can work at. We have some students that like to do like waitressing or working at restaurants. There's little coffee shops and things that a lot of the students will work at, but it depends really what they're looking for. There's lots of different options, whether they're looking for something kind of easy part-time, or if they're looking for something that's more resume building. There are businesses here that may have positions for them as well that have a little bit more involvement than just what a regular part-time student job might be. And in terms of student life, both on and off campus, like I said, community is a really big part of Nipissing as a university. We really want our students to feel like they belong here, they're connected, they have friends, they have supports, both academically and personally. And so a big part of that is helping make sure that they find ways that they can get involved that really suit them, that they're excited about. So the Office of International Initiatives does a lot of work to try to help connect international students with other international students so that they have some common ground there. But they also there's a lot of opportunities to connect with all of our students, international, domestic, wherever they might be from or whatever their backgrounds are. Some great ways to get involved are through our Nipissing University Student Union. This is a group of students that are elected by their peers to represent student interests on campus. So they advocate for students, but they also run all the different clubs that are available for students, and they do activities. This is the group that's in charge of Frosh Week, for instance, that first week of school when students attend Nipissing University, where they make an attempt to help the students get to know one another, get to know the campus so they know where their classes are, where the cafeteria is, if they need to go there, where the health center is, as well as getting to know North Bay so that they get to know where the grocery stores are, where Walmart is in North Bay, how you get around in North Bay. They run events through the year as well, and there's lots of different options. There's what I would call both high key and low key options. So whether a student is really outgoing and wants to do something really kind of loud, exciting, high energy, there's options for that. Or if the student is more relaxed, maybe a little bit more introverted and reserved, there's options for those as well. Things like movie nights, chat nights, board games, that kind of stuff. In terms of clubs and teams, there's lots of different options to suit different students' interests. So there's clubs that are geared towards continuing their academic and professional growth, if that's an area of interest for the student. Things like, for instance, our criminal justice has a criminal justice society. That's a student-run group that does things geared around and centered around the work that they do in their program, kind of expanding on that outwards so that they get more experience. There's also fun clubs as well. So things that students do together just for fun. There was an ice fishing club at one point that a student had made because that's something they were really passionate about. And that's something that if students are coming internationally, I think if they want to experience kind of stereotypical Canadian things, they should do skiing, skating, and maybe ice fishing while they're here in North Bay, which is something they might not be able to do in some other larger cities because we do have those beautiful lakes and everything around us. If there's something that a student is particularly passionate about that they would like to share with other students, they can also make new clubs very easily. All they have to do is go to the Nipissing University Student Union office. They get an application form. They need a few other students to sign that form to say they'd be interested in joining a club like that. And then the Nipissing University Student Union will provide some funding to those students for their club. So if you start a movie watching club, you can buy your snacks with money that you get from the student union. And so this is a way for students to find connections and on common ground with all other students, whether those connections are based on their future professional goals and getting experience that way, or based on just things that they really enjoy and finding common people on campus to de-stress with. There's lots of different options for students.
Thanks a lot for explaining that in detail, Sarah. We just have a few more questions to go. So we have a question that what are the kind of placement assistance provided by the Nipissing University for the students?
Is this for after graduation?
Yes, for after graduation.
Okay. We don't have placement of students after they graduate. By that I mean that when they finish, we aren't lining up a specific job for them, but what we do have is the Nipissing Promise program. This is a program that students do alongside their degree. It is 3 years long. So for instance, if they're doing the post-baccalaureate programs, which are 2 years, they can still participate in elements of the Promise program. They just can't take the end piece, which I'll talk about in a moment. So the piece that runs alongside their programming is free. They do need to register in it so that they get included in everything, but it gets them access to professional workshops to work on things like resume building, mock interviews. There's workshops on different professional skills. They get access to a career coach as well. So someone that will meet with them a few times a year to work on their professional goals, where they do want to be employed after they graduate and how they can work towards that, and a few other different things through as well. So really it's to help build them up professionally so that they're ready to be competitive in an Ontario and a Canadian career market at the end of university. We're so confident in the fact that that program is really preparing them for work, that if the student is doing a 3 or 4 year degree with us and they're doing all of the elements of this program during those 3 or 4 years, when they graduate, if they don't find career-related employment within 6 months, so something related to what they studied and what they were looking for, they can actually come back and do up to 1 year or 30 credits of tuition-free or domestic tuition-free for international students, of those free courses, basically, where the domestic tuition will be covered by us, and that would be to bolster their skills. We don't anticipate that students would would need that aspect of it. But let's say if a student did fine art at Nipissing and they went through the whole program and they feel ready to find a career afterwards, and they're applying to positions in galleries, but they're finding they're not getting it, maybe because the gallery is looking for someone who has more social media experience to help them promote themselves, that student after 6 months could come back to Nipissing and do business courses to help get that marketing experience that they feel like they're missing to be able to find that employment afterwards. Does that make sense?
I guess this brings us to the end of Q&A, Sarah. Thank you so much for clarifying all the queries. And before we sign off, anything that you would want to say to conclude the presentation?
Yeah, I just want to say thank you again for joining us. We really appreciate your willingness to learn about Nipissing University and to present that information to students. I think that all of you and our partners here with MSM and Siobhan are doing a wonderful job on behalf of our institution. If you ever have any questions or you're looking for updates on things, especially as things with COVID are changing, by all means, reach out to Siobhan and our team in India, and we'll make sure that we get any of the information that you might need.
Thanks, Sarah, for this wonderful and insightful presentation. Before we sign off, we at MSM are super excited to introduce to agents eSummit 2020 Live, and and I would request all of you to follow us on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, and YouTube platform to stay updated on our upcoming events. You can also visit our website, www.msquaremedia.com, to get further updates. Thank you for participating in today's webinar. We hope to see you again next time. Stay home, stay safe. Thank you.